Excuse me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. This live stream is gonna get dark. It is. This is crazy. So last night I was researching another live stream because I was gonna do an update on the scientists in America that have been meeting untimely ends, gone missing, connections, and I was going to do one about what's happening in China. I then started to search the internet and I thought, do you know what? I wonder if any British scientists have gone missing. And then I came across this absolute bombshell, guys. Now, just bear with me because I'm going to connect these dots for you. And it starts to get really crazy, guys. It does. It starts to get absolutely insane because the mysterious end of scientists who worked on Reagan's Star Wars program. There have been events in the past that were sensationalized and or dismissed as false conspiracies that still seem as if there may well be more behind them than meets the eye. One of these is the fact that between 1982 and 1988, well over 20 scientists who worked for the British company GEC Marconi all died after having worked on Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative program, the SDI program known as Star Wars Project. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, this is honestly, like when you start to connect all these dots, no longer do these things seem random. And once you start to see this holistically, and look, guys, when I started this channel, I do military stuff, guns, tanks, bombs, trains, planes, automobile. I'm totally fine with that. What I'm talking about now is something that is literally and I can connect those dots, right? But once you start connecting the dots, you can connect the dots anywhere, right? If you're a painter, you can paint in any color. You start to be able to paint in any color, and then you start to see different colors. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting these dots of the Strategic Defense Initiative, Ronald Reagan, and the 25 British scientists who met an untimely end. Now, just for context, right? One of these scientists was decapitated, and they put that down to they said that was self-inflicted. Honestly, this gets absolutely wild. So please make sure you hit those buttons down below, guys. Like, comment, throw your comments out there. I will be jumping onto the chat afterwards. Like, comment, subscribe, bell notification. Really, guys, that like button really does help my channel out. So I want to start by sharing this video. I know I've shared it before about this video from Ronald Reagan, right? Because I need to set the scene. I need to set the scene on this, guys, okay?
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we...
Okay, I want you to all ask yourself, did he know? Did he know? Did he know more?
Need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Okay, so that's what he's talking about. So what I'm going to do now is I'll talk to you guys first about the SDI project. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go straight onto the scientists. Okay, I'll go straight onto the scientists, and then I'll come back onto what the Strategic Defense Initiative was. So Between 1982 and 1990, 25 British scientists and engineers working for a company called GEC Marconi died in circumstances so bizarre, and they are, guys, this is so bizarre, they defy explanation. These were not ordinary researchers. These were an elite top tier of scientists working on two of the most secret projects on the planet. The Stingray torpedo for the Royal Navy and Britain's hidden contribution to America's Strategic Defense Initiative. And I am going to be focusing on this Strategic Defense Initiative. They died in clusters. One jumped from a suspension bridge. The other tied, and I'll come on to, I can name them all. I may name them all, I may not, depending on what we like for time. Another tied a rope around his neck, fastened it to a tree, and drove his car away at speed, removing that thing, allegedly. Another loaded his car with petrol cans and deliberately crashed it into a building before it exploded. Carbon monoxide poisoning in locked garages, falls from windows. The official cause was self-deletion that left families stunned, saying their loved ones showed no sign of depression and that it was out of character. All of them young, all of them working on classified defense technology. And now we have history repeating itself on a global scale. In the United States right now, the FBI and White House are investigating 11, although I think it's gone up to 13 now, researchers tied to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Advanced Propulsion, Nuclear Weapons, Exotic Materials. In China, 9 scientists are also being, 9 of the top scientists, hypersonics, military AI, space defense, guys. This is where I'm starting to put this all together. Have died from unexplained illnesses, by their own hand. They're all working on the technologies that mirror the same cutting edge projects. 3 countries, 3 decades, the same pattern. The brightest minds working on breakthrough defense and aerospace technology keep mysteriously dying. The Strategic Defense Review, or the Strategic Defense Initiative. And this is going to make you, this, guys, this is the aha moment, right? This is the absolute aha moment. The Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, was never just about shooting down missiles. Ronald Reagan hinted at it himself in private meetings and briefings, and off-the-record comments. He spoke of the need to protect the shield, for a protective shield to protect the entire planet from a threat that wasn't Russian. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? A system capable of defending Earth from an otherworldly entity. That was the quiet, unspoken purpose. Insiders, believed it served a planetary defense grid, not to defend against Russian weapons. Directed energy weapons in space, technology so advanced it could track and destroy moving targets at speed. The scientists that worked on that in Britain, America, and now China, all around this same thing, guys, all around this very same specific entity, planetary defense. That's what I'm saying these guys were working on. I don't think it's anti-gravity. I don't, guys. Look, maybe in a couple of days, other people will start to connect these dots. I'm claiming that if you want to find a connecting dot, a connecting trope, a connecting line between all these scientists, the 25 in Britain, the 13 minimum in the United States, the 9 minimum in China, I'm going to say they are developing technologies that could be used for planetary defense. So I'm going to talk about what this was now. So Back in March 1983, President Ronald Reagan stood up and announced what will become known as the Star Wars Defense Initiative, officially called the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI. Reagan's vision was breathtaking. He wanted to build a high-tech shield in space that could protect America, and by extension the West, from a full-scale Soviet nuclear attack. We're talking satellites armed with lasers, particle beam weapons, orbiting battle stations, and smart pebbles that could destroy incoming missiles before they reach their targets. It sounded like science fiction, and it still sounds like science fiction, right? That's exactly why the press nicknamed it Star Wars. At the time, the idea was ridiculed by many as impossible, dangerous, and destabilizing. But Reagan hated the Cold War logic of mutually assured destruction. The idea that the only one way to stay safe was to threaten to wipe out the entire planet. He wanted actual defense, not just the promise of revenge. And here's what's fascinating. Although the full system was never built, the research from the Star Wars project gave us a huge leap forward in missile defense technology that we still use today. Now, if we fast forward to today, whilst everything's happening, Trump's pushing for UFO disclosure, senior intelligence scientists saying we might be missing something huge, and aliens.gov quietly coming online, I think we need to start to ask a darker question. Let's just go with it, right? Let's just go with it. Let's collect all the information that we're being told, and let's just ask the hypothetical question, right? If aliens were on their way, isn't this the kind of system that they would want to stop before it came operational? Space-based lasers, battle stations in space, a space-based shield capable of just tracking and destroying objects entering Earth's atmosphere, because you only have to turn that technology around, right? Because naturally, where's my 8-ball? These things would be on, these satellites would be on orbits, right? Facing down, or you would assume. Now, very easy to say, right, okay, lasers, turn up. So that space-based shield capable of tracking and destroying objects entering Earth's atmosphere at a credible speed, that technology that could one day protect, it's the same technology that could one day protect humanity from an existential threat. Just think about it, right? If you were a civilization visiting Earth with advanced capabilities, the last thing you want is for humanity to develop a working planetary defense system in orbit. Whether you believe these, whether you believe this extraterrestrial angle or not, one thing is undeniable. Reagan's Star Wars project terrified the Soviet Union, and it may have just scared more than the Russians. So now if we look back at the scientists, the British scientists, and I don't know if there were any scientists in the US that died. I'm just going to name a few of them here, guys, okay? So Dr. Keith Bowden, he died in March 1982. He was 46. He was a computer scientist, and he was an SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative contractor for GEC Marconi. His car veered off a bridge into a disused railway, and it was ruled accident. Drunk driving, the family disputed. Lieutenant Colonel, in April 1983, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Godley, I feel like my second name should be Godley, or maybe my middle name. He was 49, head of work study unit, Royal Military College, linked to defense research, disappeared, presumed dead. No idea where he is. Can you see the pattern emerging? March 1985, Roger Hill, radar designer and draftsman, Marconi, GEC Marconi. Shotgun wound at home. Determined he did it himself. Vimal Dajaba, sorry, I'm pronouncing this wrong. Dajabi, I think his name is. August 1986. Computer systems, computer control systems, Marconi. Jumped from Clifton Suspension Bridge, Bristol. Open verdict. This is where it gets weird, guys. October 1980. Well, they're all weird. October 1986. Arshad Sharif was 26, computer systems analyst, Marconi Satellite Systems, allegedly tied a rope around a tree, the other end of the rope to his neck, and drove away at speed. What? Are we saying this is real? Peter People. Lecturer, defense researcher, Marconi. Carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage. Ruled he did it himself. David Sands, engineer, Marconi. Car loaded with petrol cans, driven into a vacant restaurant and set alight. This is unbelievable, guys. It really is. It's difficult to understand, but once you see this and you start to think, right, okay, there is a real pattern emerging here, guys. Remember, this is a conspiracy. It's a long-running British conspiracy theory. Now, there have been, people have suggested that these were assassinated by the KGB, the CIA, Mossad, even the British intelligence, to prevent them leaking secrets or sabotaging the projects. But what if that's not the real reason at all? I'm putting it to you guys that all these people have been working or involved in systems that could be used as planetary defense. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's UFOs or anti-gravity. I think it's planetary defense, although those subjects are linked in some way. So that's what we're talking about. That's what I've been talking about, guys, today. The undeniable links between all of these things. Right, let me jump onto the chat. Running Berry saying, holy cow, and I absolutely agree with you guys. Holy cow. Holy cow. The mysterious end of scientists who worked on Reagan's Star Wars program. So this dates back to the 80s, right? So if this was happening in the 80s, what has happened since? I guess 1990 was the last one. I think it was the 80. I think 82 was the first one and 90 was the last one. So there is a direct correlation, right? There's something happening here. I don't know what it is, but there's something happening. Kinder is saying that's a real story. Your best, they know what's happened. Somebody knows what's happened, right? Somebody absolutely knows what's happened. Band again is saying, discovered how to flying saucers with anti-gravity, told to show. I'm not really convinced, guys, with like flying saucers. I don't really know where to go with flying saucers. I don't really know what I'm looking at. It seems, it seems a little bit silly. I might be wrong, but it just seems a little bit silly. The whole flying saucers thing. What we can. Do you know what? There's a Wikipedia page. Give me a second. This even has a Wikipedia page, right? GEC Marconi scientist deaths conspiracy theory. Remember, guys, this is just a conspiracy theory. The GEC Marconi scientist deaths theory looks at between 1982 and 1990, 25 British-based GEC Marconi scientists and engineers who worked on Stingray. We're not I'm not really bothered about the Stingray. I'm more interested in the United States Strategic Defense Initiative project. Died under mysterious circumstances. All the information is there. All the information that you guys, proponents of the conspiracy theory, link the deaths like a James Bond-esque set of assassinations, variably blaming the Soviet spy agency, the KGB, American spies, or even British spies. Proponents of the theory claim that the deaths were linked because of scientists working on the same few classified projects, although most of the scientists had not been working closely together. You see, that's how things work in the military. That's how things work. You work on compartmentalized projects. Like, you can be working on something here. For example, I don't know. Sure, I don't code. Sean, we need you to develop a system that can do this. And it might be something menial. Sean, we need you to develop a tracking system that can identify a 1 meter by 1 meter projectile at 30 miles traveling at this speed. Right, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm literally developing a sensor now that can do that. I don't know what that's for. Could be for anything, right? Then somebody else is saying, right, okay, Dave, what I need you to do is I need you to find a trajectory. I need you to predict trajectory. So once we've locked onto something, I need you to be able to predict its trajectory. Okay, right. Okay, I'm working on a trajectory predictor, right? And they're all compartmentalized, so nobody really knows what each other's working on, but together, collectively, you know, they're actually building something a lot darker. They never said what you were saying, Kat. I don't know what's happened. Sean, we need to find Wally. What? Oh, I don't know what that. Are you saying I'm dressed like Where's Wally? Running Bear is saying there's no resting place for Charlie Kirk either. What does that mean? Charlie Kirk's dead, right? I thought he was anyway. Kat is saying, I can't remember the name of the first astronauts who were supposed to have gone to the moon, coming out and saying they never went. Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin. And he didn't actually, okay, so Buzz Aldrin didn't actually say that. There is a video of Buzz Aldrin. You know what, right, let me rephrase that. You've got to take that into context. There is a video of Buzz Aldrin saying that, but if you watch the whole video, it's just a very blinkered segment of that interview. David is saying, so you don't think it has anything to do with back technology? I think you mean back engineered technology. It may have. I think what people are missing here is this, I think what people are missing is this strategic defense initiative. I really do, guys. Allegedly, it was never built, right? Allegedly, this, the strategic defense initiative was never built. However, they were looking at missile defense technologies, lasers, particle weapons to take. So the strategic defense initiative was a global shield to protect from Russian missiles, right? Because Reagan thought it was ridiculous that the only way to protect yourself was to agree to revenge, right? So mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction is why you had an arms race, right? Because you can't let your enemy get further in front of you, because if they have more nuclear weapons than you, they can destroy you more than you can destroy them. So you have to keep building them up at the same pace. So mutually assured destruction is when, if you fire your nuclear missiles at me, I will guarantee that I will fire them back at you, which you will get, total annihilation of both sides, which is why nobody fires nuclear weapons, which I guess is a deterrent, right? Reagan didn't like that. Reagan didn't like that. So what he proposed was to build a Star Wars defense project, and it was a ridiculously ambitious project. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was made. Like, think about all the satellites that go up in space. Like, think about all the places on Earth that you could launch a satellite from, Antarctica, and we just wouldn't know, right? We wouldn't know if these satellites had been launched. We just wouldn't. I don't know. So this system may already have been developed. Now, this was a missile defense system, and it was pointing at Earth to protect the West, I guess, to protect the whole humanity from nuclear weapons. Because if ever a nuclear weapon was fired, the Strategic Defense Initiative would have used lasers and zapped the nuclear weapons out of the sky, right? Turn that system around, and you start to think of you start to see the infrastructure then for a planetary defense system. And then, I felt like somebody just touched me on the back then. Listen, guys, if I vanish, there's an alien in this room and it's just taken me away. So I just felt like something touched me on the back. That was weird. That was really weird. Guys, that was so weird. I just felt like somebody touched me on the back. Okay, peculiar. So this goes back to what I've been, talking about, because nobody can deny that there's not an absolute uptick right now in UFO disclosure. Aliens, the United States government are releasing this information. And to me, I can never know whether I'm being told the truth or not. What I do know is that the information is out there, and the breadcrumbs are being laid so we can see this. Now that's what I thought, right? But with these people meeting early deaths, it's just like, it's taken a new dimension to me, right? I wouldn't, or like, yes, you could argue that there's some shadowy department in the government, and that may be true. I wouldn't do it. I think I don't know how you could do this. I don't know what the national, I don't know what the justification for that one would be, right? But these people who are being meeting an untimely end, they are all working in a very specific area of aerospace defense. And I'm going to put this out there because nobody else is yet. Planetary defense. So the crux of this live stream, guys, is 25 British, 25 scientists working for GC Marconi have met untimely ends between 1982 and 1990. And they did die under some very mysterious circumstances. If you open this window up now, how many more of these projects have met, how many more of these projects have been closed with similar ties? So just for context, I was just searching this last night because I was going, in fact, I'm probably going to come back on and do another one because I've not got it planned. I was doing because there's, I'm probably going to do a reaction video later because I've got there's loads of videos out about UFOs and UAPs. But I was talking about this I was thinking about this last night, and I was just thinking, I wonder if any British scientists have I wonder if there's any projects that Britain have been working on, because I know there was allegedly a non-nuclear EMP in near Rendlesham Forest. I know these things, allegedly have happened. And then when I came across this, the mysterious end of scientists who worked on Reagan's Star Wars program, the SDI. It was just crackers, guys. It really was. And it's given me that direction now of the link, because all of these people, the British, the Americans, the Chinese, I'm going to try and find Russians, but it's very It's very difficult to find anything from Russia because they're not that well documented. And a lot of these people, and let's be clear, we don't know what's really happening. This could all be AI. This could all be fake. It could all be it could all be a long-standing psychological warfare or whatever. But all these people I'm putting it that all these people were involved in some sort of technology, some sort of technology that would be, some sort of technology that would be used or could be used in planetary defense. And I think it may all start with this, guys. It may all start with Reagan and the Strategic Defense Initiative. I think that's where it's starting. Because if you're if you're planning if you're a sniper, right? There's a kill chain you take out, right? There's a kill chain. So if you're a sniper and you're looking at I don't know, enemy platoon or enemy company, right? You don't go straight away for their leadership. The first thing you take out is their signals, right? So you take out their signals so they can't call for help. It's the first thing you take out. It's not really applicable when you're thinking about on a galactic scale, right? Who is Earth going to call? We're going to call the Autobots. Who are we going to call? We don't have planetary allies, right? That's not even a thing. So the next thing you take out is any weapon system that can reach you. So then depending on your range, you might take out their 50 cal machine gunners. You might take out their 7.62 machine gunners, whatever. You then take out their leadership, right? That's what you take out. So the Strategic Defense Initiative, I don't know if it continued. I've no idea. But I do know that from what I'm reading, a lot of the scientists, 25, Wikipedia tells us, 25 British scientists who worked secretly on the Strategic Defense Initiative, which could have been dual purpose as a planetary defense, mysteriously died. That in itself is wild, right? That in itself is insane. And now you fast forward to 2026 and you've got the US scientists missing, being investigated. You've got the scientists in China all working on similar projects. It's crazy, guys, and that's what I'm saying links it, guy. That's what I'm saying links it. The Strategic Defense Initiative. Right, listen. I'm going. Hang on. Jess is saying, I think they will be able to bend time and space, get from A to B in seconds. Okay, so I guess this is good news. Okay, so if that was the case, Jess, and look, I did talk about this the other day. If that was the case, right, then they wouldn't need to take out our defenses now. They'd just turn up and say, yeah, we're here. We want your adrenochrome, and we want half of your population as well, and we want some of those, and we want one of those steak and cheese footlongs from Subway. They would literally just turn up and demand what they wanted. Now, the fact, and again, look, this all may be wrong. It could be something else. I don't know. But if this is something otherworldly, right, and they're taking out scientists and defense contractors and defense mechanisms, that means that their technology is not that far ahead, and they're having to take out that technology because we may be able to put up a fight. Sean is too frightened to tell the truth. What is the truth? Tell me what the truth is. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't want to be that. Listen, I don't want to be that guy. You know, I don't want to be that guy who's saying that this is, you know, that this is something and it's totally not. I will only say something if I've got a high degree of, you know, if I've got a high degree of certainty with it. And I just don't have a high degree of certainty with this, guys. I really don't. But something is happening, right? You can't deny something's not happening. Rod Panhard is saying, "I'm predicting subways going." Yeah, all the subway workers start mysteriously vanishing as well. Ghouls and Ghosts is saying, if they can travel galaxies, our defenses aren't really a deterrent. Okay, I wouldn't say that. First of all, we don't know how these, you know, let's just go with it, right? We don't know how, if these people are traveling. They may not, you know, they may not have the ability to travel galaxies at speed. They may live on like, in fact, the Watchman just put Nibiru up here. Hang on. Yeah. The Watchman said maybe they're on Nibiru. So, like, you know, they could be on a planet and that is on a huge orbit, and they only get an opportunity to come near Earth and attack every couple of thousand years. You know, that's how they may be getting around the universe. We don't know. Cindy is saying they are definitely working on anti-gravity. I know what you mean, but like the phrase anti-gravity, I know what you mean. We'll just go with it. Caveman is saying the UFO that turned sideways and took off was bending time and space. It's how they travel. That's what they say. How do we know it's aliens, though? How do we know that's aliens? David Hennessy is saying, we don't know anything. That's the problem. The government doesn't allow us to for national security purposes. Yeah, so I do think that when this disclosure comes out, this Donald Trump, this disclosure on aliens.com? Aliens.gov, sorry. I think that's going to be the next step. It's going to be a controlled release. But I do think all this stuff now, you put that into a box, and the outcome for me is that all these people were working on systems that could be used in planetary defense. Caveman is saying, I believe one witness said the Tic Tac UFO went from 50,000 feet to sea level, as if it was docking underneath something, the water. Yeah, so they saw this on a radar, right? They saw this blip on a radar. They didn't actually watch it. This was a blip on a radar. And I am going to come on very shortly, and I'm going to do another video about this. But I think what that was plasma technology. Basically, if you can fire two lasers, or maybe microwaves, I think microwaves. Sorry, forget lasers, microwaves. If you can fire two microwaves and get them to meet in a point, you will cause a plasmoid in the, you will cause a plasma sphere in the troposphere where we live. So, because that will ionize the atmosphere, and you'll get like a little orb. So I do think a lot of these orbs and stuff that people see, I think they're just plasmoids the submarines do. I think a lot of US military submarines, or, with advanced technology, cause these plasmoids in the sky. And the reason they do that is for deception. For example, if you're going to attack China, you want them to think you're coming from the West. You send your submarines, right? You send your submarines to the east. Sorry, you send your submarines to the east coast of China, right? You get your submarines then to make these plasmoids appear in the sky. So on radar, they're getting these blimps, and then you have those plasmoids. Remember, you're controlling them now with a laser. You have a microwave. You get those plasmoids then to act like an aircraft, right? So those plasmoids, so the Chinese look on their radar and they're like, oh my God, there's 200 enemy aircraft coming in from the East Coast. Deploy all aircraft to the east. And then the real attack comes from the west. So I think that's what a lot of those things are. The lights I seen moved at the speed of light. Definitely went from 100 foot above me to the stars in 2 seconds. Kimmy is saying, no, Sean, some orbs are of spirit, not just plasma. Yeah, so maybe, I don't know. I can't vouch for all of them, but what I can do is say that the ones I believe that were picked up by US radar in the US training area were US military. Yeah, I think that's true as well. It's kind of like one of my why I've been saying I don't think nuclear weapons are going to be used. David Campbell is saying only 32 likes, guys. Have you liked yet? Have you hit that like button? Can you hit that like button, guys? Really helps me out when you hit that like button. Woke Fatigue says you might be right, Sean, but who had controllable plasma during World War II, as in Foo Fighters? Good question. Good question. Yeah, good question. I don't have an answer for that. Cindy is saying that's like in a movie when you throw something and it makes a sound, then the villain goes, look in the direction that sound came from. I don't know what that's. Oh, yeah. So in response to using plasmoids to distract China or Russia that you're coming from an attack from the east, but you're really coming from an attack from the west or whatever. Dan Rogan is saying UFOs have been seen all over the world for at least 100 years, all shapes. Yeah, there's like old pictures. I think there's even a Leonardo da. Give me a second. So the Madonna, hang on. So there's a Da Vinci painting, hang on, that is claimed. Hang on, let me find this. Right, let me see if I can, yeah. So I don't know what you guys think about this, right? But there's a Da Vinci painting and it's claimed to have a UFO in the background. So this is a Da Vinci painting, allegedly. I don't know, it could be AI. So that's a Da Vinci painting. And if you can just see over the lady's left, your right, her left. If you guys can see over her shoulder, that's supposed to be a I guess a saucer or something. Again, I don't know. To me, it just looks like a speck. But people are saying that in that Da Vinci painting, that depicts I guess what we would call and identify as a flying saucer. David Campbell is saying the follow Madonna with the big boobies. Jess Pix is saying it looks like a saucer. Yeah, that's what people say it is. Again, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, it could be a saucer. But again, back when Da Vinci was painting that, nothing was flying. So what would it be? And Dan Rogan is saying, whatever it is, it's real. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, okay, I am going to start to close this live stream down. I'm going to be back on again pretty soon. I'm going to be doing another. There's a lot of videos come out about UFOs, UAPs. So this video now was just my findings on 25 UK scientists. Well, let's get the Wikipedia up. not the Wikipedia, 25 scientists in the United Kingdom who had ties to very high-end defense contracts. The mysterious end of scientists who worked on Reagan's Star Wars program. Now, there may have been events in the past that were sensationalized and or dismissed as false conspiracies that still seem as if there may be more behind them than meets the eye. One of them is the fact that between 1982 and 1988, if you guys look on Wikipedia, it actually gives you 1990 as the right hand post. Between 1982 and 1988, well over 20 scientists who work for the British company GC Marconi all died after working on Ronald Reagan's strategic defense program. That's well documented. Nobody's denying it. And I'm connecting these dots, and I'm saying there is a strong possibility that all these people, the American scientists now, the Chinese scientists, they could have and will have maybe all been working on technology that could be used in planetary defense. That's where I think the dots are at the moment. That's where I think the direction of travel is going. Whether this is all fake, whether this is a psychological warfare, I've no idea. But they're the breadcrumbs that I'm seeing. They're the dots that we need to connect. Whether this is real, whether in 2029 on the 13th of April, 2029, whether little green men turn up on, hiding behind Apophis, or whether they don't. I don't think it matters, because I do think something huge that is going to absolutely eclipse everything is coming, because these little weeds that we're being given, normally when you're looking, I want to close this live stream down, guys, because I'm going to come back on very soon and talk about something very similar. But in regards to what's happening in the United States, I just want to focus this on what's happening in the UK. If you look at the world and everything that's happening as a movie, you see these setups for the later payoff. These setups that we're seeing now are like chunky, they're like, what are those these are like Californian redwoods. These are big setups. And if these payoffs happen later, they're going to be huge. They really will. And you're going to get all these people coming out in their grey suits. Everybody's going to be an expert very soon. Everybody will be an expert. Look how the media is changing. Look how the media, this is no longer a fringe topic. And I'm not going to steal my own thunder from later on, guys, but I'm going to be back on very soon, and I'm going to be talking about what's been happening in America, what's happening with the UFO disclosure, and what's happening with the 13, I think it is now, scientists in America who are officially being investigated. I'm putting all this into the same category, and I'm putting that down to planetary defense. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close you guys down now. I'll be back on very soon, and I'm going to give you guys an update on what's been happening in the United States. Anyway, if you've not done so already, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, bell notification. I'll catch you guys later.